This is Dana with Dana Digital Tutorials. Have you ever had an image come out of AI and one of the arms or other objects are misshaped and you would love the image, but you would love to just be able to correct that one part? Well, let me show you a couple of different ways that you can do this. The first way we're going to do is we're going to use something called Puppet Warp. It's kind of fun. It's like having a puppet. We're going to go up to Edit, Puppet Warp, and we're going to have to start by putting some pins in for areas that we want to be able to move or keep still. So I'm going to put some pins maybe in these areas, and the reason I'm putting pins kind of in this curve is I want to be able to correct the curve as I go. So we're going to put some pins here, and then we're just going to start dragging and see what we get. So to drag, we're going to click on the pin that we have, and we're just going to drag it out. And you can see I've already made his arm longer, and it's doing a pretty good job. If I wanted to maybe move this area some, I could add a pin in here. It doesn't have to just be on the edge. And then maybe I could add a pin here and drag it out. And then when I'm done, I'm just going to hit enter. You do have to be careful that you're not warping items within your object to where they don't look right, but this is a very effective way of warping your object. Now, if I wanted certain areas to stay still, let's go ahead and hit enter, and let's look at the before and after, and I'll show you how to get your areas to be still. So we're going to go ahead and create a duplicate copy. This is the original here. So I'll just name this so we can get back to it, if I can spell correctly. And then this is our Puppet Warp 1. So we'll just type Puppet Warp 1, and then we'll work on this image. So let's go back into Edit and Puppet Warp, and we're going to put some pins right back in. I find it's kind of easier if I have those pins on kind of the beginning of the curve, the end of the curve, and then a couple in the middle. Now, what happens if I say click up here and then I start dragging? You're going to see that his head isn't moving. So let's undo that, and let's undo that one pin that I had. Let's see if we can delete that pin. And now what happens when I start to drag? You see he's moving. So let's undo that, and we're going to pin these areas because we're going to tell it to not move the rest of this subject. We really just want to isolate moving on the arm. So now if I start dragging, the head is moving over here. So you can just keep adding pins. They just can't be too close to each other. If you try to put one really close, you'll get an error like this. So then we can start dragging, and the rest of our little gingerbread is going to stay still. If you don't like the way it's moving around here, you can take the time to add pins all around. But once we have this fixed the way we want, then we can just hit OK or enter. So this was this is Puppet Warp 1, and this is Puppet Warp 2. Well, this is 2, and this is 1. And you can see, if we compare to the original, he's not moving as much in the areas that I clicked. So that is a way to work on adjusting this image. But if you find that the area that you're stretching is warping too much, I'm going to show you another way that you can do this. We're going to hide these two, and we're going to make another copy of our original right here. And all I'm doing is I'm hitting Command J if it will work, and it's giving me trouble. So let's move it up, and it's not going to let me Command J. I'm having all those problems with my shortcut keys. They give me trouble all the time. So we're going to name this one Puppet Warp 2. That way we can go back and compare. So another way that you can do this is, and I kind of like this way sometimes, is you can take and go ahead and just cut this area. And the reason I'm choosing this area as opposed to, say, this area is because I noticed that what is missing is this brown section, not this brown section. So I'm just going to cut this, and I do want to cut, and I do want to make sure that my layer is unlocked. And you will see why in a minute. So Command or Control X and Command or Control V. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to move it where I think it should go, kind of thinking about the lines here and there. If I want to rotate it a little bit, I could do that as well, but probably right about there. And then I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. So Command E. And by the way, if you had a completely messed up arm, you could even take just the tip of this arm over here, copy it and flip it and put it over there. And I'll show you in a minute. Oop, me and the scroll. So now we're just going to hit W, and we're going to notice that I'm in the Object Selection tool, but I actually want the Magic Wand tool. So I'm just going to select this blank area, and then I'm going to use Generative Fill. So Edit, Generative Fill. Now sometimes when you do this, you may notice a fine line around the edge because it's kind of a blurry cut and paste. If that's the case, then you can go up here when you first make your selection, and you can go select, modify, and expand it by a couple of pixels. And now you can see that it's added the arm, the rest of the arm, and it hasn't done perfect. We have some issues here that's easy to fix up by just coming in here and selecting and going Edit, Generative Fill, and it should clean that right up. So this is another way that you can extend that arm. But what I do notice is I'm missing these little pieces here, and it feels like something's off. And so now you can see that's fixed. So I'm going to go ahead and not flatten, because in a few minutes I'm going to show you another way. We're going to come over here and we're just going to take these little spots. Now I can copy this and paste it over, or let's Command D, and I can go up here into my Magic Wand and go over to my Object Selection tool, and instead just kind of select those areas. And now you can see I'm just getting the cute little icing bumps. So now I'm going to copy that area, and you see I can't copy. That's okay. So to copy, I'm going to go Command Shift or Control Shift C, and that basically just copies everything that you can visually see, regardless of which layer that it's on. Then I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to, that would be Command or Control V, and then Command or Control T gives me my little arms. Now I'm going to move it over here, but I do need to flip it. So right click, flip horizontal, and I can just kind of put those right in an area that looks cute. You can move it around. If you want to use your arrows to move, you'll need to make sure you're on the Move tool. But now I can just put them anywhere that I feel that they should go. So this is another way that I could extend that arm. Anything else that you want to work on or fix, if you want to add like this line in here like it is over here, you can do all of that using your standard ways. So we're going to go ahead and merge those, and this one is called Generative Fill 1. But what if on my original I do not have the arm or the icing? So let's go ahead and move this to the top, and let's show this area, and we're just going to delete this whole area, and we're going to pretend that it just didn't give it to us. So what can we do? Well, what I personally would like to do is come over here to this side, and I'm just going to copy this area. Now this is going to work fairly well, because if you notice my direction of light is kind of coming from here. It would be better if it were coming from here if I'm flipping horizontally. But we're going to see how it works, and we're going to work with what we get and get it to where we want. So let's go ahead and Command or Control C, Command or Control V, Command or Control T. That's three things in a row: C, V, and T. Copy, paste, and transform. We're going to right click, we're going to flip horizontal, and we're going to slide this right over. And I can see that my shadows are going to do really well here, and I'm okay with that. It looks pretty good, but if for some reason my shadows weren't correct, then I would probably have to do some more generative fill options, and we'll play with that. So we're going to go ahead and flatten this area, and then we're going to select. And by the way, when I'm selecting, I'm probably not using the best selection tool. I'm using the little J that's over here, which is the patch tool technically. But typically you can use the lasso on this second choice. If you see your lasso, you have a couple of different options. This will do straight lines. This will try to stick to the closest object, and this will just be freehand, and then this will try to select whatever object you're hovering over. So you can use this one as well. But I want to make sure that all of these areas that don't look right are all selected, and maybe even just kind of come up in here, and then I'm going to use my generative fill. Generative fill, and then we're going to hit enter, and hopefully it's just going to finish filling that in. We'll see what it does with this little white line. It probably will make it just kind of fade to nothing, and that is okay. It's a cookie after all. Every cookie is unique and different, and that's exactly what it did. It just took that line in and faded it out. So this is another way that we could do generative fill. As you can see, we do have some things to clean up here. And what I would probably do for that is just come in and select that whole area and do edit, generative fill. I know I might be going a little fast in this video, but you can play this at half speed, or you can pause and play as you need. But I want to be able to get through this as quickly as possible for you without losing you. And now you can see it's cleaned up pretty well. And you can continue to work on it if you don't like some of these areas, but this is another way that we can extend our arm here, and so we'll call this generative fill 2. And let's compare all of them. So we're going to unclick this one. This is our original. This is our Puppet Warp 1, and if you notice our guy moves, so we would have to rotate him. This is our Puppet Warp 2, where I put some pins in so he didn't warp as much. This is our Generative Fill 1, where I drug this out. And I feel like I would work on these areas here, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And this is our Generative Fill 2, which I do think worked the best, but that's not always going to work if your direction of light makes this look like it doesn't fit. So let's go back to this guy here, and I'm going to show you another feature that you can use in any one of these steps. We could go back into Puppet Warp, kind of warp this around. I just want to show you a different tool. So we're going to go ahead and do Command or Control T, and we're going to click this little warp button. Now you have quite a few options here that you can play around with. They all do so many different things. I could spend 30 minutes on this, but today we're just going to work on grid, and we're going to change the default to 3. And when we do that, you'll notice that we're going to get something similar to Puppet Warp. The downside here is I can't freeze certain sections. So this is probably not something to do if you've got a whole big section to move, because like I said, I can't really freeze those sections. But I can come in here and do like the 4 instead of the 5, but when I do that 4 instead of the 5, I find I have a much harder time. But as you can see, I can work this all the way around. I just don't like that her face is being misshaped. So this is another way that you can work, but it's probably not the best way. So this is Dana with Dana Digital Tutorials. Check out the description below for links to help you with Photoshop shortcuts or anything else that you might need. I hope you have a great day.